very happy to have Suzanne Belnoun with us today. Suzanne is the director of OFAD. OFAD is the organization of African women diaspora. They're based in France, but it's a network of African diaspora organizations, African diaspora women organizations in France and in Africa. We have Kalkidan Legesse with us. Kalkidan is a founder of Scars for Sustainability, which is a fashion brand here in the UK, and Kalkidan works with women weavers in Ethiopia. And then we have Basil Jones from the African Development Bank. So we will start with Suzanne. So as I said, Suzanne only speaks French, so I will intervene and translate some of her presentation. So bear with us, please. Suzanne? Vous nous entendez? Bonjour Suzanne, vous nous entendez? Parce que nous, on ne vous entend pas. Okay, so I think Suzanne is having some issues with her mic. Vous nous entendez? So maybe Kalkidan, can we start with you?
Great, okay. So yeah, sorry for that unfortunate start. My name is Kalkidan Legesse, and I run a project called Scars for Sustainability. The main aim of the project is to create a new market for hand-woven clothing and textiles made in Ethiopia and the UK, and to start supporting the trade of those textiles here and creating working opportunities for women. So just to give you some background of who I am, so my family migrated to the UK when I was 5 years old. I grew up here, and you know, I've always been interested in sustainability and working with women. And during the work experience in Ethiopia, I saw the vast opportunity there was to pursue a weaving industry and pursue a project focusing on weaving. And I decided to open Scars Sustainability in 2015. So Scars for Sustainability, to put it simply, every year we have a minimum number of women we try to train to weave in Ethiopia. So we have weaving projects in Debre Marcos and outside Addis Ababa in the Shuvameda region. We train women, so over the time we train 10 women. At the moment we have 4 women who work for us throughout the year, and then by the end of this year we want to increase that number. We train them to weave on wooden looms like you can see in the images. They're very basic. In the images here in Debre Marcos, they're planted into the earth, but the final product they produce is on our model who's standing in the street there, and essentially the final product is very fine and very high quality. And so we train the women to weave, and then as we do so, we try to guarantee a high wage for their work. And so basically we set our 2,000 DTB a month guidance minimum on the fact that the government has a 450 ETB a month wage labour minimum for government employees. And we feel that by training women, by paying a fair wage, and by creating the market link, we can support the hand looming industry in Ethiopia and help it as a market to develop and grow. So why do we do this? We think it's a fantastic opportunity to create new job opportunities. The looms are incredibly appropriate technology for the region because they're very simple and the cost is very low and they're easy to maintain. But the final product, like I said before, can acquire quite a good price here. We want to create new market links, so we want to normalise trading with Ethiopia, with Ethiopian weavers, creating a demand for valuable textiles from that region, and also so that we can use it as an opportunity to change the narrative on poverty, so we can discuss, more about what happens in the country apart from just underdevelopment. So you can just discuss things like design, the history of weaving, why there is such a prominence of it in the capital, just things like this, so that when we engage with consumers here, we can talk to them about some of the positive stories in Ethiopia as well. So what changes have we seen so far? So we are very much a business-orientated company who try to buy and sell and improve and create a competitive product. But in our time, we paid over £15,000 in wages at different levels, from weavers to people who chef and things like this in time. And we think that has helped improve the security of income for the weavers. So just recently, we placed our largest orders in the low season so that people could have access to fair incomes and an income source. But I think, the changes that I've seen, that aren't monetary in the past few years, the biggest change is the confidence in design and the increasing awareness of what the Western consumer is looking for. So by having, stricter quality control, or by, we do the design here and we try to discuss with our weavers and, with the people we buy, the raw materials from, why, or the yarns from, sorry, we discuss with them why something has to be presented the way it is, and what benefit can be, how the consumer is going to be respond to that product as a result of it. And having done so over a few years, we see that the weavers are becoming much more aware of what it takes for a product to actually hold its place in the Western market, and we hope that will have long-term consequences. And finally, what opportunities do I believe lie in the future? Well, the reason we begun is because there is, a capable, skilled population in Ethiopia, but of course the capacity is much larger than what we do. As wages increase in the east, in China and Bangladesh and Cambodia, textile industry is moving to Africa, and so if more people, it's a huge opportunity for trade, as companies are looking for ways to maintain their low cost, but can't necessarily do that in the east. So if there was, if anybody can invest in factories, or they can invest in linking the already established factories to brands or buyers in the UK, then I think there's a lot of benefit to be earned there. But also things like upskilling. So there are lots of people in Ethiopia who would love to, their passion is textile and fashion, but perhaps they don't know how to interact with Western buyers in an efficient and effective way. So things like upskilling of how to use, the websites and email and Alibaba and all these different, how can I say, programs that we use to communicate as buyers and sellers. If there was some upskilling in this, I think there'd already be people who are capable of producing, but perhaps just don't have access to the market yet. So yeah, I think that would be a great opportunity for anybody who's interested in learning and being more involved in textiles in Ethiopia. So I think that's my 10 minutes. I don't know if I rushed through it too quickly. Does anybody have any questions for me? Or Haja, would you like me to wait until the end to take questions?
Yes, I think that will be best. So we will, after everyone presentation, I will take questions. So just, we couldn't see your presentation very well, so some of the attendees are asking whether it can be sent to them later.
Yeah.
Ouais, c'est bon, parfait. Oui, c'est bon, allez-y. Donc je vais juste intervenir pour traduire en anglais après chaque grand point, d'accord?
Madame Bernou, la présidente de l'Organisation des femmes africaines. de la diaspora. Donc, les membres africains. Alors, qui sont les OFADiens? Ce sont des Africaines jeunes, femmes ou moins jeunes, chefs d'entreprise, dirigeantes d'associations, cadres d'entreprise ou des porteuses de projets qui ont choisi de valoriser la femme africaine et d'amener les femmes à acquérir une autonomie financière et contribuer à la création des richesses dans nos pays d'accueil et d'origine, de rompre avec l'isolement des femmes créatrices d'entreprises de la diaspora. Elles ont choisi aussi de favoriser les échanges et les expériences avec les autres femmes, d'inciter et d'accompagner la diaspora féminine à s'intégrer par la création d'entreprises et à promouvoir l'entrepreneuriat féminin africain. L'OFAD, l'Organisation des femmes africaines de la diaspora, a été créée en 2011. C'est une plateforme nationale et internationale qui réunit les femmes africaines en général et celles de la diaspora en majorité. Les membres sont des Africaines entrepreneurs, dirigeantes d'associations, cadres d'entreprises, porteuses de projets sociaux, mais surtout économiques. L'Organisation des femmes africaines de la diaspora, nous sommes un espace intergénérationnel pour donner et recevoir. Elle a pour objectif principal de dynamiser l'entrepreneuriat de la diaspora féminine, aussi bien dans le pays d'accueil et dans le pays d'origine. Elle œuvre pour le rapprochement des entrepreneurs d'Afrique et celles de la diaspora et plaide auprès des institutions de nos deux pays, de nos deux espaces. Le FAD est une vitrine et un lieu de réseautage pour les entrepreneurs africains. Elle accompagne les femmes au montage de projets et à la recherche de financement. Elle développe le mentoring au sein du groupe. Elle organise des rencontres de haut niveau sur l'entrepreneuriat féminin pour créer des opportunités d'affaires. Elle est un pont avec les réseaux des femmes entrepreneurs en Afrique. Elle fait du plaidoyer auprès des institutions privées et publiques. Pour accélérer les projets, elle a noué un partenariat avec la grande école de commerce HEC à Paris.
Donc, Suzanne, peut-être que je vais intervenir un peu pour traduire. So Suzanne is the director of OFAD, Organization of Women African Diaspora. So the aim of the organization is to work with business leaders, leaders of organizations, corporate executives, project leaders, to promote African women's work in France. So the aim of the organizations is to help women gain a greater financial independence and to contribute to wealth creation in countries of residence and origin. But also to overcome isolation of diaspora women entrepreneurs, to foster exchanges of experience with other women, encourage integration, promote women's entrepreneurship, African women's entrepreneurship. So the organization was created in 2011 as a national and international platform that brings African women's and diaspora women together, so women on the continent and in the diaspora together. So it has as members African entrepreneurs, directors of organizations, corporate executives, women involved in development. So the OFAD is also an intergenerational space. So really it wants to stimulate a women's entrepreneurship and also provide capacity building to enhance African diaspora women entrepreneurs' impact on the continent. Suzanne, à vous.
Donc, le cas le transport annuel de l'État c'est le programme économique que nous organisons chaque année pendant 2 jours à l'ENA et qui réunit environ 700 personnes. L'occasion de rencontrer des partenaires, des financiers, des investisseurs, des professionnels du conseil, de faire des échanges d'expériences et de bonnes pratiques. C'est une opportunité d'affaires pour les femmes. Le FAD profite lors de cet événement pour encourager l'entrepreneuriat féminin en récompensant les femmes et les hommes sélectionnés par le comité. Alors, l'impact du réseau OFAD. Ces ateliers sur la réintégration préservent les femmes des erreurs quand elles entreprennent dans leur pays d'origine, dont la diminution des échecs, prépare les jeunes aux réalités du terrain. Le réseau permet de répertorier les compétences et de leur donner de la visibilité. Ces entrepreneurs servent aussi de référents pour encourager les autres à oser et à diminuer l'informel dans notre communauté. Le réseau permet de répertorier les compétences et de donner la visibilité. Et ces entrepreneurs servent aussi de référence, comme je l'ai dit, et bout du million d'informels. Le FAD reçoit près de 100 femmes par an au stade de projets différents, mais les moyens ne permettent pas toujours de les accompagner.
Okay.
Le FAD
je vais traduire. So Suzanne mentioned one of their main events that they organize once a year in Paris with the ENA school. So it's an event involving over 400 people. It's an opportunity for participants to meet potential partners, funders, investors, advisors in order to share experiences and good practice. So that event also is an opportunity for women in business to be able to meet each other and to get greater opportunities for funding. So the OFAD used that event to encourage women entrepreneurship by rewarding women and men shortlisted by an organizing committee. So OFAD provides space to create opportunity together. It supports into taking account the realities of African women and encourage them to see how their activities develop. Oui, allez-y.
Le FAD des femmes africaines des deux espèces de créer des opportunités ensemble. Son accompagnement tient compte des réalités des femmes africaines et d'identifier à une vision du développement de leurs actions. Le partenariat avec HEC est un accélérateur de projets des femmes et une opportunité pour activer les partenaires financiers. Cependant, la méconnaissance du poids économique de la diaspora féminine en Afrique reste un frein pour nous.
Voilà. So Just 1 second. So OFAD's workshops enables women. I can't see my screen. Sorry. The workshops enables integration of women from making mistake when they do business in countries. It also push women to know more about the realities on the ground. So the partnership with HEC is an accelerator for women's projects and enables women to sort of learn more about the economic power of the diaspora to enable more development, their impact in development. Allez-y.
Donc, voilà le plutôt au point de nous sommes plus références auprès de en France. De plus en plus, on arrive à repérer que les femmes africaines peuvent être sont une réservoir d'emploi, alors que nous avons quelques années, personne ne croyait en nous. Le stéréotype dominait la femme africaine de la diaspora en France. Et à travers le FAD, nous sommes de plus en plus contactés dans le processus de négociation, même si ça reste timide. Nous aurions bien voulu que ce soit plus, que nous soyons plus sollicités, parce que nous avons suffisamment de compétences au sein de la communauté pour que les autres puissent parler à notre place. Merci.
So the OFAD enables women to sort of learn more about the power of their impact, and to enables them to showcase more what they do in order to give them a bigger voice, so that they can speak for themselves and they can showcase what they do. So unfortunately, I couldn't hear the end of the beginning of Suzanne's presentation, so sorry for my bad translation because I couldn't hear properly. Merci, Suzanne. Donc, if you have any questions for Suzanne, we will take them at the end of the presentation. So now we will have Basil Jones from the African Development Bank.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for this opportunity inviting African Development Bank Gender Team to make a presentation on the work we are doing in terms of investing in gender equality in the continent. Okay, I will start by just talking about our gender strategy. The bank's gender strategy rests on 3 pillars. And the first pillar, which we think is very critical if we want to have gender equality in the continent, is how do we strengthen women's legal status and property rights, because we feel that this is the cornerstone of inclusive growth and gender equality in the continent. It is an area where the bank will focus on supporting governance, legal reforms, and land tenure for women farmers in particular, because we know that in Africa, women farm the land, but they don't own the land. So I think that also is a serious challenge in the continent. And the second pillar that we are working on is on the whole area of women economic empowerment. And here we're trying to see how we can increase women's access to and control over financial resources and services. Looking at issues of infrastructure, how do we advocate for affirmative action in favor of women and women-owned businesses to increase their productivity, especially the productivity of women in agriculture. And then the third pillar is on knowledge management and capacity building. I guess from the previous two presentations, it's very clear that women organizations and supporting women entrepreneurs, we need to do a lot of capacity development. And this the bank is doing through providing resources and technical assistance so that we can for gender equality. And also, how do we improve gender results? Because I think it's very critical that whatever we do, we measure it, and so that we can find what are the results of the operations that we are carrying out. We have a new president. Well, he's been in the bank for over a year now, and when he came in, you might have heard people talk about the high fives in the African Development Bank. Now, what are these high fives? These high fives are 5 priority areas that we think if Africa invests in these 5 priority areas, we'll be able to structurally transform and eliminate poverty and improve the quality of life of people in Africa. Now, the first one is Light Up and Power Africa. We know the challenges in Africa without energy. Industries cannot run. There are also it impacts on health and education. So the first pillar or the first priority is how do we light up and power Africa? And the second pillar is how do we feed Africa? You know that 60% of the world's arable land is in Africa, yet still Africa cannot feed itself. So it's about time that Africa, with all the resources it has, the land resources that it has, should be able to feed itself. Things like hunger and malnutrition, which affects mainly women and children, should be eliminated. So we're looking at a continent where there will be no hunger, there will be no malnutrition, and that is the second priority area. The third priority area is industrializing Africa. If you look at global manufacturing share, Africa's share in global manufacturing, it has been stagnant at about 1.9%, and that has not been growing. And the reason for this is quite obvious. Africa just keep on exporting raw primary commodities without adding value to its commodities. So we're looking at how can we add value to our primary commodities so that we can move up the global value chain. And the fourth area is integrate Africa. If you look at what is happening in Europe and in the United States and Asia, you know, regional integration in Africa is the lowest, almost about 15% compared to about interregional trade, about 80% in the EU, about 65% in North America, and about 60% in Asia. So we need to see how best we can integrate Africa through infrastructure and also through soft integration, looking at some tariffs and non-tariff barriers that prevent African countries trading with one another. And of course, the fifth, which is the overriding priority, is how do we use all these 4 priorities to improve the quality of life for the people of Africa? Here we want to look at how do we end poverty, how do we increase service delivery for the people of Africa. And in all of these 5 areas, gender features significantly in these 5 areas. For instance, on the Lighting Up and Power Africa, we are looking at how do we eliminate the use of firewood so that we can have clean cook stove. If you look at the evidence, every year in the continent, 600,000 women and children die by inhaling, smoke. It causes a lung problem for them. So the question we have to ask is it right for our mothers to be preparing food for us and then they die in the process? No, it's not. So we need to change that. That's why we're looking at how do we come up with clean cooking solutions. And we have a target here of by 2025 to have about 150 million households are connected to clean cook stores. In agriculture as well, we know that 70% of the people who work in agriculture sector are women. We need to see how we can support them in agribusiness, whether they are rural farmers or they are SMEs. We know that if we close the gender gap in agriculture, we can improve farm yield by 20 to 30%. Studies have shown that you can improve farm yields by 22%, 30%. And by just improving farm yields, by closing the gender gap, you'll be able to reduce poverty by almost about 150 million in the continent. Just think about that. Just closing the gender gap, you can reduce poverty. Closing the gender gap in agriculture, you can reduce poverty by 150 million. And so those are sort of the areas that we're looking at supporting. So here I've just talked about, the focus that I just mentioned, the clean cook solutions, and also supporting women in agribusiness, and the youths as well, both young men and young girls. There's a lot that we're doing at the moment to support young people to go into agriculture, increasing the women's participation in the labor force. So there's a lot of programs and activities that the bank is engaging on in supporting youths, especially having young people go into agriculture, to see agriculture as a business, as an enterprise, not agriculture as a way of life or agriculture as a poor engagement, but to see agriculture as, an enterprise, agribusiness, so that people will be able to make decent living out of the agriculture sector. Now, as you know, the African Development Bank do a lot of infrastructure projects, and as I said, this helps to facilitate regional integration. This picture you're seeing here is a road project in the northern part of Nigeria. It's called the Fofoso Salwa Road. And by just building this road, we are able to provide portable drinking water into this community. There's almost about 30,000 people, and it used to take about 4 hours to get to the nearest hospital. Now the travel time has been brought down to about 1 hour, and with the provision of clean portable water, it was reported in Ghana that there were almost about 442 cases of guinea worms, and out of this, almost about 237 were from the northern part of northern region. But this has all been eliminated and reduced because of the provision of clean portable water. Now here is on the third pillar that we work on. We produce the Africa Gender Equality Index to show how countries are performing in terms of gender equality. And you can see from these slides, the top 10 performing countries overall, where we looked at how they're doing in terms of legal, social, and economic gaps between men and women. And I think the countries in the top 10 should not come as any surprise. South Africa, Rwanda, Namibia, Mauritius, because these are the countries that have got more progressive gender equality programs and legislations. Let me talk about one of our new flagships that the bank is embarking on. And this is called the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa. It's called the AFAWA program. And from the presentation of the previous speaker, she talked about women's lack of access to finance. And what the AFAWA program is doing, AFAWA is the bank's response to supporting women in business through advancing their economic empowerment and also reducing their vulnerability. So it's the bank's way of responding to this challenge of lack of access to finance. I think Susan mentioned about this, and she talked about the training that they do, the capacity building. So what we're doing in APAWA, we're looking at the whole ecosystem, not just providing financing, but we're also looking at technical assistance, building capacity. So, which is the second pillar. So you have the financing window using different bank instruments that we provide funding to financial institutions, non-bank financial institutions, so that they can on-lend to women enterprise. But sometimes when women are running their enterprises, you'll see that they need support on how to run their enterprises. So this is where the technical assistance component come in. We'll be providing technical assistance support to women in business, so they'll be able to grow and scale their enterprises. The third one that we're looking at is the business enabling environment. And here we're trying to see how we can protect the interests of women MSMEs in the review of policies and regulations and compliance systems in our regional member countries. Because sometimes you do have policies and regulations that are not conducive and don't support women to scale up and grow their businesses. So we want to look at this whole area of the enabling environment that can support women enterprises to scale up and grow their business. And then the fourth one, which I will talk about before I conclude, is what we call the Empowerment Lab. As I said, I'll talk about the Empowerment Lab in my last slide. Now, I think this is where we have some synergies with Kalkidan and the work that she's doing in Ethiopia on SCARF for sustainability. We took a bold step to go into an area that is traditionally not done by the multilateral development banks. And this is an initiative we're calling Fashionomics. Fashionomics is an online platform that we're developing to support women in this sector. What we're trying to do is how do we increase access to market? How do we increase access to finance? How do we provide mentorship and networking opportunities? And how do we develop the skills of groups that are operating in both the formal and the informal sector? Now, we know that the clothing and textile sector is the largest, is the second largest sector that employs women after agriculture. So there's quite a lot of opportunities here to support women in this sector. And we know that it is labor intensive as well. So there are opportunities to offer employment and to transform the lives of women and youth. For instance, if you look at Ethiopia, where the clothing and textile sector has created almost about 60,000 jobs, and you have companies like H&M, the Swedish clothing retail, they are also sourcing in Addis Ababa from Ethiopia. So, as I said, with Kalkidan, we see quite a lot of synergies here in what we are doing in terms of Fashionomics, and with Suzanne, the program we have on APAWA also, which is to support women entrepreneurs and how can they scale up and grow their business. We see a lot of synergies in these two areas. Okay. Now, the final slide that I have here is a program that we call the 50 Million Women Speak, which is also an online platform, and it's a project that we are implementing at the moment with regional economic communities. And here, what we do is to bring African women entrepreneurs together through an online platform, so that they'll be able to share information, because we think that it's very important. Africa is such a vast continent, So maybe you're an entrepreneur working in Nigeria and you might want to source information from another entrepreneur in Rwanda. And through this online platform, you'll be able to share information. There'll be peer-to-peer learning, as was mentioned earlier. If there's a new entrepreneur who wants to get into a sector and needs advice so that they can avoid making mistakes that previous entrepreneurs made, there'll be peer-to-peer learning, and there'll be coaching and business opportunities, providing access to finance. And all this is being done with the aim to grow businesses of women entrepreneurs and also to create employment. So within this short period of time that I have, I think I've exhausted my 10 minutes. This just in summary and in brief gives you an indication of what we're doing in the bank and what the gender department in the bank is doing in terms of supporting African women in the continent, whether they are women at the bottom of the pyramid or whether they are women at the upper end of the business scale. We look forward to working with and collaborating with other partners, because we feel that the only way that we can make a difference is when partners work together and we collaborate. No one institution has the answer to all the questions we have in the continent. So we partner and we collaborate, and by doing so, we'll be able to find solutions to the problems we have in the continent. So I will stop here and wait for questions, and I can provide answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Basil. Thanks a lot. So I can see on the chat that there was some connection made and information exchanged already. So that's really good, because that's also the purpose of this webinar. We all do a lot of amazing work, but we might not know about each other. So it's great that few of you were able to connect and exchange information and contacts. So thank you very much to our three speakers. Thank you, Basil. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Kalkidan. So now I will read some of the questions that I can see on the chat box. So, Anne Valco Celestino. Very interesting work Kalkidan is developing in Ethiopia, and I would like to hear from her how she is creating the space for women weavers, given that weaving is a traditional male-dominated labor role in Ethiopia. So, Basil, I will mute your computer to enable Kalkidan to respond to this question.
Hello, thanks for the question. Yeah, no, I think you're completely right, Valco. So essentially when we began, what we did was find women who were not involved in the textile industry whatsoever, and didn't have connection with it. We bought all of the looming equipment, set it all up, and provided a 2-week training to begin. And that's how our first 4 weavers in Deborah Marcos were set up. And then again in Addis Ababa, with our seamstress and other textile producers. There are like projects in Ethiopia, like I don't know if you've ever heard of Moya Arts or the name escapes me, but I'll write the websites down in the chat in a second. But there are weaving workshops which have been established for decades in Ethiopia, like targeting a very high-end market. And what I've learned from them is one of the best ways to get women involved in weaving is by keeping it within the family and encouraging, male weavers to teach their daughters as well as their sons. So what we've done is we found people not involved in the industry and trained them from scratch. Therefore, they don't hold any of the the traditions as strongly. But I think there's lots of opportunities. By providing, if you can provide the training and the support, then you can hire anybody. and by creating like a safe environment and enabling environment for women to weave as well, then they'd be happy to reduce it. And in the future, we've got what we hope to do is make our project suitable for people to do in their own homes as well, so that when we do train future women to weave, they can weave around their household tasks. Yeah, but it was definitely a challenge to begin with, and it probably will be in the long run as well.
Great, thanks, Kalkidan. So I have another question, Cassandre, who is asking what is HEC. So Cassandre, I think you got an answer. So HEC is a business school in France, in Paris. And then Kalkidan was asking Suzanne, hello Suzanne, do you mean poor awareness of diaspora or that diaspora being underestimated? Donc Suzanne, c'est une question pour vous de Kalkidan. Qui voulait savoir en fait si vous vouliez dire que qu'il y avait qu'il n'y avait pas une grande connaissance du secteur de la diaspora même, ou est-ce que les femmes de la diaspora sont sous-estimées?
Il y a un stéréotype qui est souvent destiné des femmes migrantes, c'est les femmes sans formation, les femmes battues, les femmes avec beaucoup d'enfants, qui vivent des allocations familiales. Voilà le stéréotype en France de la femme africaine. Et donc, notre combat justement est de passer ce stéréotype. Ce n'est pas la seule image qu'on peut avoir de la femme africaine en France. Et cela joue aussi jusqu'aux jeunes générations qui sont nées ici, qui ont fait de brillantes études et qui ont du mal à s'affirmer parce que ce stéréotype continue. Donc, notre plateforme, justement, c'est de donner la visibilité à celles qui ont fait des études, qui, même sans faire des études, ont des activités économiques qui rapportent, et qui peuvent même servir aux femmes françaises qui ont une seule, comme je dis souvent dans les interventions, que les femmes françaises ont une seule catégorie d'entrepreneurs. C'est celles qui ont qui sont super diplômées. Alors que les femmes africaines, on trouve parmi les entrepreneurs les femmes pas instruites, mais qui réussissent dans les affaires. Des femmes peu instruites qui réussissent. Et mieux encore, celles qui sont diplômées. Donc, c'est un apport qu'on peut apporter à la société française et qu'elle ignore. Et donc, c'est un sentiment de frustration que nous avons voulu combattre. Et le fait, justement, qu'on ne voit pas assez la femme africaine entrepreneur en France, peut aussi, même pas peu, mais empêche aussi d'autres de prendre les initiatives. C'est pour cela que je parle de référence, c'est-à-dire donner la visibilité aux autres, encourage celles qui hésitent à oser, elles aussi.
Okay. So Suzanne's response to this question is saying that, yes, it's mainly about breaking down the stereotype of African women have in France. So the big stereotype is that African women are not educated, they're just victim of violence, and don't go to university, don't own businesses. So what they want to do is to highlight that many African women are highly educated, own businesses and successful businesses, but also OFAD aims to inspire French women that are not from the diaspora to showcase all the different businesses owned by African women in the diaspora, but also to stop the fact that African women entrepreneurs are not visible is a stop to other women who wants to create businesses and who wants to create organization. So the goal of OFAD is also to inspire other women, other African diaspora women to do more, to learn from each other, and enables them to jump and just create their businesses. Let me see if there's another question. So Kalkidan is asking Basil, hello, does the African Development Bank have any plans of providing regulatory advice for government institutions, particularly in the barriers to entry to business?
Thank you, Kalkidan. Yes, we do that all the time. We have what we call policy-based operations with our member countries, and these are operations where it's policy-based. The government will agree to undertake reforms, especially governance reforms in the area of business environment, business enabling environment, looking at taxation issues, so encouraging the private sector. We do that all the time, and as you know, the World Bank also annually they produce the ease of doing business report, which ranks countries, and sometimes countries also do look at that to see how well they're doing. The fastest growing countries are those that are doing a lot of reforms, the ones that are attracting a lot of investment. If you look at countries like Rwanda, which has definitely done a lot of reforms, they are attracting a lot of investment, and the business enabling environment is conducive to private sector development. So yes, we do engage in analytical work, policy-informed research that we present to our regional member countries through our policy dialogue to show them that these are some of the benefits that we get in terms of reforming the economy by providing. So we do provide regulatory advice, in short, to countries and institutions. Sometimes it's slow for them to adopt these policies, but with the emphasis now on private sector-led development in the continent, I think countries will more and more start embracing good policies in terms of the regulatory environment.
Thank you, Basil. So Francine is asking, how can we get involved with AFDB's work?
Okay, there are two ways of getting involved. It depends on where Francine is calling from. If she's in the continent, we have country offices and we have regional hubs. I think I don't know which country she's calling from. One of the best ways is to walk into our country offices and seek an audience with staff in the country offices who will be able to give you more information of the work that we do and these areas that we work in and what sectors we support. Like I mentioned, the high fives. Those are not the only areas, but those will be the focus. So I think that's one of the best ways. The other way, you can send me an email. I can share my email address towards the end of the session. People can get in touch with me, and I can give them more information on how to engage with the African Development Bank. But just to mention that we normally work with governments, but also we have a private sector arm that works with private sector as well.
Yes, so there was actually, you've answered to this. Someone's asking, do you deal with individual business owners directly, or is it all done via partner agencies? So Basil, I don't know.
Yeah, with governments, that's the public sector window. But we also do have a private sector window that we work with the private sector, and more we are increasing our engagement with the private sector because you know, governments have got limitation, but the engine of growth, as everybody knows about in the continent, is by encouraging the private sector because they are the ones that will create they are the dynamic sector and the engine of growth that will create the jobs and create the employment so that we can reduce poverty in our continent.
So then we have a couple of remarks. Mirana is saying that what Suzanne said is really true. Kalkidan, thank you, Basil, for helping me to understand. I hope Ethiopia will start to reduce barriers. From my position, it has definitely been one of the largest challenges in building a strong enterprise. So I don't know, Basil, whether you want to respond to that.
Yes, I think yeah, everybody acknowledges that barriers in Ethiopia needs to come down further. I mean, it's a country with huge potential. It's a massive, big country population-wise, but if you know they liberalize and open up the economy, I'm sure it's a gradual process. But the potentials that Ethiopia can unleash, if you know the regulatory environment is more conducive to private sector, would have a tremendous impact. I think they will become the leaders in Eastern Africa, without a doubt, because the opportunities are there. Like I said, in terms of the clothing and textile, if you see H&M, the Chinese are investing big time. Floriculture in Ethiopia. So if they can open up more, and I think that would really have a huge impact in the continent.
Great. Any other questions? Suzanne, on ne vous entend pas très bien.
La question là-bas.
Pardon?
Est-ce que je veux poser une question à la
Bien sûr.
de la BAD?
Bien sûr, bien sûr.
D'accord. J'ai vu le problème qu'il y a pour les femmes en Afrique. Mais ma question, est-ce que la femme africaine de la diaspora, parce que nous posons toujours la question, si l'Afrique fait que les femmes de la diaspora peuvent être aussi sont aussi une force économique.
D'accord. So Basil, Suzanne's question is she's wondering whether your programs are only for Africans on the continent, or would it involve also African women in the diaspora?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, given that we are an African institution, the African Development Bank, and we focus mainly on the continent. What we have been doing is supporting, you know, if it is women economic empowerment, it's women in Africa. But I think the way I see engagement of the diaspora, because if you look at the African Union, they have already said that the diaspora is the sixth region of the continent. You know, we have the 5 regions in Africa, and then the diaspora is the 6th region. So if the diaspora is the 6th region in the continent, it means that, you know, we need to engage the African diaspora, because the African diaspora has a lot to contribute. But this is an interesting question that I'd like to maybe have a further conversation with Suzanne to see how best the bank will address engagement with the diaspora. I think one of the quick answers I see is maybe through partnerships. I don't know whether the diaspora, the organization that she's leading, are investing mainly in Europe, or they're investing in the continent. I think if they're investing in the continent, this is where partnerships can come in, and through those partnerships you can get more support. But to say that the bank invests in women entrepreneurs who are outside the continent, I have not seen anything like that done before.
Okay, thank you, Basil. Donc, Suzanne, Basil disait que c'était une très bonne question et que l'Union africaine considère la diaspora comme la 6e région du continent. Donc, il faut travailler avec la diaspora. Et Basil demandait si l'OFAD de travailler sur le continent africain, et que si oui, donc il y aura peut-être l'opportunité de créer des partenariats. Mais s'il n'y a aucune activité sur le continent, jusqu'à là, ils n'ont pas vraiment travaillé avec des organisations qui ne sont actives que sur le continent européen, qu'à l'extérieur de l'Afrique. Mais donc, il disait que peut-être que c'est une discussion que vous pourriez avoir pour voir comment peut-être créer un partenariat et pouvoir travailler ensemble.
Nous travaillons beaucoup. 40% des fonds que nous accompagnons, c'est pour aller entreprendre en Afrique. Là, je dois même aller la semaine prochaine en Côte d'Ivoire pour notre antenne sur la Côte d'Ivoire, comme nous en avons au Congo, comme nous en avons au Cameroun. Donc, nous sommes très présents. Et d'ailleurs, notre action, c'est encourager les femmes à aller entreprendre en Afrique. C'est pour cela que nous avons mis cet atelier de réintégration des femmes africaines quand elles veulent aller en Afrique, parce que le taux d'échec est énorme. Nous faisons un travail énorme là-dessus. Donc moi, j'aimerais bien l'inviter à notre forum économique qui aura lieu en septembre, pour qu'ils viennent expliquer aux femmes ce que la BAD fait pour les femmes de la diaspora, pour les encourager à aller entreprendre en Afrique. Aujourd'hui, le problème pour moi, c'est celui-là.
Ok, Suzanne, je n'entendais pas très bien, donc j'ai pas tout saisi, mais je vais traduire l'essentiel de ce que vous avez dit. So Basil, Suzanne is saying that yes, because her organization aims to support women to create enterprises on the continent, so they support them in terms of capacity. So she is herself traveling to Abidjan very soon. So they have noticed that there's a big enterprises tends to fail in big numbers on the continent. So that's the whole purpose of the organization. So I think I didn't hear properly, but I think she wants to invite you to address that issue at an event that they're organizing very soon. So I suppose maybe Suzanne and Basil, I think it might be worth having a conversation and see how possibly OFAD and FDB could partner.
Yes, we'll take up the invitation for September, and we'll see whether I'll have myself or one of my staff come talk to them on the work that the bank is doing, especially supporting women SMEs to scale up and grow their business, and how linkages can be developed with OFAD, since they are working with African women in the continent to give them technical assistance and capacity building. Like I mentioned earlier, capacity building is very critical. Most women enterprises they want to get a loan from a bank, but if you do not understand how to run your business, how to financial literacy, those issues, it becomes difficult for you to get credit from financial institutions. Yet we know that women have got the highest repayment rate when they take credit from financial institution, but still financial institution are not lending to women. So I think these are some of the things that we need to change. So of course, the capacity building that OFAD is doing to support women is something that we welcome. But we can take up this discussion offline with Suzanne to see how we can, we can collaborate.
Great. Donc Suzanne, Basil va vous contacter pour voir comment vous pourriez collaborer et notamment peut-être sa participation à l'événement que vous avez mentionné. So I won't read all the comments because I can see that there's a whole discussion going on the chat. So can you just please keep it to questions, because unfortunately the chat box can't be shown on the recording, so it would be a shame to have a double conversation. So I will just read some of the questions. So Cassandre is asking whether there's a branch or an equivalent to OFAD in the UK. Donc Suzanne, Cassandre demande si vous avez une branche de l'OFAD en Angleterre et est-ce qu'il y a une organisation ou est-ce qu'il y a une organisation qui est similaire?
Nous sommes en contact avec une organisation similaire à la création, parce que nous on voulait vraiment travailler avec les fonctionnaires pour voir les pratiques des autres. Nous on venait de payer. Mais par la suite, apparemment, on a pris l'organisation cette question.
Je vous entends pas, Suzanne, je vous entends pas très bien.
Vous m'entendez mieux là?
Oui, ça vous dérangerait s'il vous plaît de parler un peu plus fort parce que je sais pas pourquoi je vous entends pas du tout.
Je disais que quand nous avons créé le réseau FAD, nous avons essayé d'identifier les réseaux des femmes africaines un peu partout en Europe, pour pouvoir travailler et voir comment les pratiques se faisaient. Et à l'époque, il y avait un réseau là-bas, mais apparemment, ça s'est éclaté. Et je ne sais pas trop pourquoi, donc on n'a plus beaucoup. Par contre, il y a un réseau, par exemple, en Belgique, avec qui nous travaillons très très bien.
Okay. So Cassandre, Suzanne said that when they created OFAD, they tried to identify other similar organizations and networks in Europe. So for instance, there was one in the UK, but it seems that the organization is not active anymore. So at the moment, they work with an organization, a similar organization in Belgium. So, is there any other questions?
Yes, Haja, I've got a question.
Yes.
Okay, I have a question for all of our panelists. The first one to Suzanne is to ask which African countries that she's working in, and for her to tell us where she's been successful in working with partners in Africa. What are the factors that determine that success? And her mic is a bit low, so if she can perhaps speak a bit louder. So for Suzanne, is the African countries she's working in, and what are the factors that determine the success of her work there? Then the question to Kalkidan is, my understanding is she has been involved with a Ford Diaspora Finance Program, which provides both financial and capacity support. And I wanted to hear her experience of that sort of diaspora technical support, how important it is to the sort of work she's doing. What are the things perhaps that need to be improved or enhanced? And then the third question to Basil is also related to Ford's Diaspora Finance. Basil, your colleague Babakar Samba was a guest speaker for these webinars. I think it was in December. And we are involved with him through the Migration and Development Fund of the African Development Bank. But AFFORD and other organizations in France, FORIM as an example, have developed funds, grant funds, whereby we support diaspora entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs to pursue projects and businesses in Africa. And we've been able to do it either on a country basis or on a thematic basis. And my question is to you is there any scope for substantive collaboration along those lines? For example, contribute to a fund whereby it just targets entrepreneurs who are doing work with women in Africa. Thanks.
Thank you, Jerome. So I'll start translating for Suzanne. Suzanne, alors il y a vraiment un problème avec votre micro parce qu'on vous entend de très très loin. Donc la question de Djibril, c'était premièrement dans quel pays exactement en Afrique vous travaillez, et dans ces pays-là, quels sont les facteurs qui déterminent le succès de vos activités?
D'accord. Alors, les pays où nous travaillons, je vous ai dit, nous sommes en Côte d'Ivoire, nous sommes au Cameroun, nous sommes au Congo-Brazzaville. Il y a le réseau des femmes nigériennes qui nous a contactés aussi, enfin qui a intégré le FAD et qui voudrait qu'on s'installe au Nigeria. On va voir. Nous sommes en partenariat avec certains réseaux des femmes entrepreneurs en Afrique, ce qui nous permet de faire, de faciliter l'arrivée des femmes que nous accompagnons quand elles arrivent sur le pays d'accueil, qu'elles ne puissent pas être perdues, mais qu'elles puissent être accompagnées par des professionnels, des femmes qui ont déjà une expérience. Donc, c'est ça qui fait notre force, parce que nous avons des réseaux d'accueil, puisque ces réseaux, nous les avons développés suite à un constat que nous avons eu à faire du nombre de femmes qui échouaient quand elles vont entreprendre dans leur pays d'origine. Le taux d'échec est énorme, c'est 75% de femmes qui échouent, parce que l'accueil n'est pas là, parce qu'il n'y a pas d'accompagnement, parce que pour beaucoup de raisons. Donc, à partir de là, nous avons développé le partenariat avec le réseau des femmes entrepreneurs qui permet aujourd'hui d'accueillir des femmes et de les accompagner selon là où nous n'avons pas d'antenne. Hein, parce que les antennes, c'est celles qui sont définitivement rentrées. Voilà.
Merci. So, Djibril, Suzanne mentioned that the work in Africa is in Ivory Coast, Cameroon, DRC, and they just received a request for a partnership request from Nigeria, so they might soon start to work in Nigeria. So she thinks that it's mainly the fact that they have a support network, and especially the partnership. They have partnership with women networks in Africa, which enables them to provide support to newcomers in host countries. So she thinks that it's that sort of business support that enables a high rate of success in women's enterprises. So maybe Kalkidan, do you want to respond to Djibril's question?
Et nous sommes, du forum, nous sommes membres du forum. D'ailleurs, je suis la référente genre au sein du bureau du forum.
Hello.
Sorry, I'll just translate this last line for Suzanne. So Djibril, Suzanne mentioned that they're a member of FORIM. So she represents the network for him. FORIM is a membership organization in France, for those who don't know. And FORIM sits on ADEPT's board as well. So we work quite closely with them. Kalkidan, okay, up to you.
Hi, so just to confirm, this is Jibril's question on the fraud.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So fraud has been amazing. Like, so yeah, we won the £25,000 grant match for like funding grant for developing our SCARS sustainability project. And it's just been fantastic. It allowed us, like, specific things that's helped us with this year is in providing 20% prepayment for WEVIC. So this is one of the conditions for acquiring a fair trade certification, because it enables producers to not worry about the risk of production, not fall into credit, and it was just a fantastic opportunity. It's also allowed us to take our product and test it in more competitive markets. So whereas previously we retailed it from our store in Exeter, where we have a huge monopoly on, maybe not a huge monopoly, but we definitely have a monopoly on fair trade fashion in our local area. We were able in the Christmas period to take the product and test it in London and test it in the country living markets, and also to take the product to a show in Berlin to see whether or not the product itself stood, which we wouldn't have been able to do without the financing. So, we're so happy and so pleased to be able to have taken those opportunities. I'm grateful for Ford for that. And yeah, I think it'd be wonderful for other enterprises too in the future. I think one challenge that it would be fantastic to get a Ford support on in the future is like operating in Ethiopia. I think we've got quite a good handle on the market here, but there are some sort of non-financial challenges really in Ethiopia which are difficult to overcome. Like I mentioned in the comment section, like various barriers to entry, long-standing costs required by the government, just the cost of exporting from Ethiopia is, I think it's restrictively high, but I don't know if that would fall under a Ford's, span of support. Yeah, does that answer your question, Gabriel?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Kalkidan. Basil, do you want to?
Okay. Thank you, Jibril. I think if I get your questions right, you're asking if there's any scope for substantial collaboration, or there's some collaboration fund in the bank that can support the diaspora engagement, the diaspora entrepreneur engagement in the continent.
Yes.
Am I reading you? Yeah. No. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I think what we have been seeing recently, over maybe the last 10, 15 years, for the African diaspora that have left their countries and they've gone overseas, and they become professionals, and some of them are either coming back or they're investing in their home countries. So they're bringing in their connections, and they're bringing in their wealth, and they're also bringing in their expertise in the way they do business, which, as we know, is not based on you being the president's cousin, as it used to be in the continent. So they're bringing in how to operate in an international environment, which is welcome. I think we need to see more of this type of collaboration of diaspora entrepreneurs supporting our African-based entrepreneurs. Now, in terms of funding that we have, in the bank we do have what we call trust funds, and one of the trust funds that you talked about is the Migration and Development Fund that you mentioned you gain access to some country and thematic work. So we can look at some of these trust funds to see how we can come up with a program, maybe working with ADEP as the lead facilitator to support bringing in more, how do we mobilize more African diaspora for development. And this is particularly true in fragile and post-conflict countries, because we know those countries have institutions are weak, they have no capacity, private sector engagement is very low. So I think here, this set of countries are countries where we can mobilize diaspora, especially with the high skills, the qualification, to help build domestic capacity. So the diaspora will be able to contribute to knowledge, human resources, and institution building. And it is very critical. It's not just the entrepreneurial spirit, but also how can they also assist in building stronger institutions in Africa. For instance, I'm from Gambia, and with our new government, you can see that the diaspora is being very active. They are very engaging, and some of them are really raring to go. But we need to get the policy environment right that can support diaspora to engage with our African countries. So yes, I think from the side of the bank, we have quite a number of trust funds that we can look at, and some of these trust funds are mainly supporting the private sector to see how we can, increase collaboration or have resources that would increase this type of collaboration that would then bring in more diaspora entrepreneurs to support their local counterparts in the continent. So we need to leverage the experience and knowledge of the diaspora in this sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Basil. So Sarah Angela Simons is asking, in order to identify other ADOs, so ADOs are African Diaspora Development Organizations. So in order to identify other ADOs to partnership with in specific countries, an online directory would be helpful. Could you tell us if you already have an online directory of ADOs working in Africa that we could update our company details and also contact others? Sarah, we have one on ADEPT. So ADEPT has on our website we have a directory of diaspora organizations, and some of them are working in Africa. So we're currently updating and continuously updating that directory, but I think that would be a good start. So Kalkidan said that she is also working on something similar, and we'll get in touch as soon as it's ready to publish. Is there any other questions? I can see some of the other things are more of remarks. So Francine is running an online group called Adipwe. So I think, Francine, if I'm correct, it's a website showcasing diaspora women leaders. So she's asking whether she can share Suzanne and Basil's details if we can share Suzanne and Basil's details for follow-up. So I think Basil already shared his email. Suzanne, Francine demande si elle peut vous contacter. Donc, est-ce que c'est OK si si on partage votre email? Si c'est OK, vous pouvez le partager. Vous pouvez juste l'écrire sur le chat box. And then Sarah is saying, I recommend membership to Afford Business Club as a capacity building platform for Africa-based in-country business support to newcomers in host countries. Thank you very much, Sarah, for mentioning that. So yes, Afford is currently accepting, and it will continuously accepting members for the business club. So I will be writing down the website where you can find more information on Afford's Business Club. So it's www.afford-diasporafinance.org. So if you click on the website, you will find out about the business club and the different type of services that ABC is offering. So at the moment, we are we are decorating a room that will be a physical business, a resource center, a business club. So people would be able to come and get information there and also network, and it will be a space to sort of come and meet our consultants, our business consultants. At the moment, we have 3 business consultants at Rutherford, and they're here to support diaspora businesses working in Africa. So a round of grants we just end a round of a grant called Diaspora Business Competition. So we're in the process of selecting the potential winners. So those winners will be having, on top of the grants, they'll be having business support. But everyone else is also welcome. So we hope to have other rounds. But even if you don't qualify for the grants, you will still receive business support. There's a small membership fee, and then you will have as much support as possible throughout the year. So all the information is available on the website. Is there any other questions? So even though, just one point, even though the ABC is not dedicated to women, but we encourage women diaspora businesses. So please, if you're thinking of a business idea, please come and meet us. So it's for everyone, and particularly women. Any other questions, remarks?
You've only got 3 minutes.
So Céline Fabriquet, at ICP YPN, we have working towards youth inclusion in policy development, and we are very thankful to be able to access such webinar. And we are open to exchange. So maybe Céline, would you mind leaving your website so that everyone can read it? Nene, has the PQQ been announced? Not yet. Kassande, just to thank you to you all, Haja, Suzanne, Kalkidan, and fellow attendees, very informative. Thank you. Thank you very much. And just one thing, Kalkidan is making me be ashamed because I don't know what I was doing at 24. She's only 24 and has created an amazing company. So on top of women support, we really need to support youth entrepreneurs. So really well done to you, Kalkidan.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for all your support as well. It's been fantastic, and thank you for inviting me to speak. Yeah, and I'm so open to collaboration, and I hope if anybody wants to contact me, I've written down my email address, and I hope I can stay in contact and work with everyone involved today. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. Merci, Suzanne. Merci beaucoup pour l'opportunité de présenter OFAD. Merci, Basil. Thank you, Basil. Thank you very much. Thank you to all speakers. Thank you for attending the webinar. We'll have webinars every month in the upcoming months, so please visit our website and check our social media link. So you have it on your screen. Facebook, Adept will be sharing all our next webinars. So Francine is sharing her LinkedIn page, so maybe you should copy it. Chipo as well, sharing her email address, so anyone wanting to connect with her should take it. Thank you, Jibril. Thank you, everyone, and hope to see you at our next webinar in April. Thank you. As I said, I will be sharing the video, so we'll edit it down and share it on Adept's website, and IOM will also be sharing it. So if you need it, please. I will try to send a video of it to everyone as well, but in case I forget to send it to you, please don't hold it against me. Just remind me or just check our website. So Suzanne just left her email, so anyone wants to have contacts with her, please write it down, because if I end the call, you won't be able to see it anymore. So please write it down if you want to get in touch with Suzanne. Thank you very much, and have a nice afternoon. Bye. Merci, Suzanne.